What if the greatest animated treasures of the 1960s vanished long before they ever had a chance to shine? These were shows that arrived with hard imagination and fearless creativity, yet they were gone in a flash. Some were victims of ratings, some of budgets, some of pure studio panic. Today we count down 15 1960s animated shows that ended far too soon. Number 15, The Jetsons, 1962. The Jetsons launched as ABC's bold leap into a futuristic dream world, yet it arrived at the wrong hour of television history. In an era dominated by live-action giants, this animated sci-fi family struggled to hold its ground. Critics admired its bright vision of flying cars, robot maids, and space-age optimism. But the show faced a brutal reality. Networks believed animation did not belong in prime time. So, despite its charm and groundbreaking art direction, the series was cut down to just one season. The premise was gentle. George, Jane, Judy, and Elroy lived in a world where technology solved every problem. But there was satire hiding under the neon lights. The Jetsons quietly poked fun at corporate America consumer culture, and the loneliness hiding inside the shiny new future. It was clever, and audiences who discovered it later recognized that intelligence. Behind the scenes, the budget was tight. Hanna-Barbera was pushing limited animation as far as it could go. Meanwhile, ABC faced pressure to compete with bigger live-action hits. The Jetsons never stood a chance. After 24 episodes, the network shut the doors and moved on. Yet the aftermath was stunning. The show found new life in syndication, where entire generations fell in love with its humor and its wild imagination. What once struggled became iconic. Decades later, the series returned with new episodes, films, and merchandise. It became a permanent part of pop culture, proving it never deserved early cancellation. The Jetsons did not just end too soon, it arrived too early. Number 14, Top Cat, 1961. Top Cat swaggered into prime time with the confidence of a streetwise hustler, yet its life on television was far shorter than anyone expected. Inspired by classic sitcom rhythms, the show followed a charming alley cat and his loyal gang as they cooked up schemes in a dusty corner of Manhattan. The idea was clever, the humor was sharp, the animation was colorful, but the audience that ABC wanted simply did not appear. Top Cat had personality. TC's quick jokes, Benny the Ball's innocence, and Officer Dibble's exhaustion made every episode feel like a miniature stage play. Critics noticed the witty writing. Some even praised its Broadway-like timing, but ratings told another story. Primetime families preferred live-action escapism, and network executives were growing impatient with cartoon experiments. Production was expensive for the era. Backgrounds were richly painted. Characters moved with more flair than usual Hanna-Barbera shows. The creative ambition became a financial burden. ABC executives questioned whether humor about scheming alley cats truly fit their brand. After 30 episodes, the decision was made. Top Cat was gone. Yet the legacy that followed was unexpected. When the show moved to Saturday mornings, it exploded. Children adored the cast. International broadcasts turned TC into a cultural icon, especially in the United Kingdom and Latin America. Toys, shirts, and merchandise arrived years after cancellation. What was once considered a misfire became a global classic. Top Cat ended too soon, not because it lacked quality, but because it stood in the wrong place at the wrong time. Decades later, its charm remains untouched. Number 13, The Alvin Show, 1961. The Alvin Show marked the first major television debut of Alvin Simon and Theodore, yet the series was short-lived despite the fame of its stars. Audiences expected a musical sensation. What they received was a quirky experimental cartoon that mixed music comedy and surreal visual gags. Critics appreciated the boldness, but the broader audience did not immediately connect, and CBS made a quick judgment. The premise followed the chipmunks navigating chaotic adventures under the watchful eye of Dave Seville. The humor blended slapstick timing with musical interludes. It was ahead of its time. The visuals were stylized with bold shapes and bright colors. Unfortunately, the style contrasted with the more traditional look that early 60s viewers preferred. Behind the scenes, the studio faced production challenges. Budgets were tighter than anticipated. Animation took longer than expected. Music rights and recording schedules caused delays. CBS worried the show would not keep up with its competition. After 26 episodes, the network quietly ended the experiment, but something remarkable happened after cancellation. Reruns gave children a second chance to discover the musical madness. The popularity of the Chipmunks skyrocketed. Record sales increased. Alvin and the group became icons and returned in later decades with new shows, albums, and eventually blockbuster films. The Alvin Show did not fail. It simply appeared before television was ready for its unusual blend of music and comedy. Number 12, The New Casper Cartoon Show, 1963. The New Casper Cartoon Show arrived with the intention of reintroducing a beloved character to a new generation. Casper the Friendly Ghost was gentle, sincere, and designed for younger audiences. Yet despite the promise, the series ran for only one brief production cycle before disappearing into reruns for years. It was a case of strong potential, cut short by changing tastes. The show presented short, whimsical stories featuring Casper, alongside characters like Wendy and Spooky. The tone was warm and comforting. Parents approved. Children enjoyed the simple adventures. But the landscape of 60s animation was shifting toward action-based cartoons and superhero themes. Gentle fantasy was becoming less fashionable. Behind the scenes, the studio produced 26 new Casper Casper cartoons, quickly then relied heavily on reruns to fill ABC's Saturday morning slot. Executives concluded that investing in more episodes would not bring enough return. Meanwhile, louder, flashier shows began dominating ratings. Still, the aftermath proved Casper's staying power. The character lived on in comic books, holiday specials, later animated series, and eventually live-action films. Many viewers believed the 60s series ended far too soon because it offered a rare softness in a decade full of the high-energy adventure cartoons. Casper did not vanish, but the show that tried to revive him certainly ended long before it should have. Number 11. Fireball XL5, 1962. Fireball XL5 was one of Jerry Anderson's early triumphs, a thrilling supermarionation sci-fi series that dazzled children with its cosmic adventures. Yet, despite its bold vision, it lasted only a single production season. Fans and historians agree the show deserved much more. It was a creative milestone that should have led to further stories. The premise followed Colonel Steve Zodiac and the crew of the Fireball XL5 as they patrolled deep space. Each episode offered imaginative alien worlds, heroic missions, and dramatic tension. The series embraced the excitement of futuristic travel at a time when real-world space exploration was capturing global attention. Behind the scenes, the production was incredibly ambitious. Elaborate miniatures, detailed spacecraft designs, and complex puppetry placed the show at the cutting edge of 60s television. But this ambition came with a cost. Episodes took longer to produce. Budgets rose quickly. ITV and NBC grew hesitant to fund additional seasons. When ratings stabilized instead of rising, executives shifted focus to new Anderson projects like Stingray and Thunderbirds. Fireball XL5 was left behind with its 39 episodes standing as its entire legacy. Yet the aftermath revealed its power. Reruns cultivated a loyal fan community. Merchandise and model kits became cherished collector items. Sci-fi creators of later decades openly cited Fireball XL5 as inspiration for their work. The show ended too soon, not because it failed, but because it flew too close to innovation. Number 10. Johnny Quest, 1964. Johnny Quest exploded onto ABC as one of the most daring animated shows of the decade. It mixed world exploration danger and sci-fi mystery in a way that no other cartoon had attempted. Yet, despite its creativity and its stunning visual style, it lasted only one season. It was bold, ambitious, and expensive. Too expensive for its network to maintain. The series followed young Johnny, his scientist father, Dr. Quest, Race, Bannon, and Haji as they traveled the world, confronting strange creatures, secret labs, and powerful villains. Each episode felt like a miniature adventure film. The backgrounds were painted with care. The tone was serious. The stakes felt real. This was not a typical Saturday morning romp. It was closer to a living comic book. Behind the scenes, the production pushed limited animation to its limit. Action scenes required more detail. Characters were more realistically drawn. ABC realized the show cost far more than most animated programs of the era. Ratings were good, but not strong enough to justify the cost. After 26 episodes, Johnny Quest was halted. Its legacy, however, was unstoppable. The show became a cult classic in reruns. Later generations of animators praised its style. New series and reboots emerged in the 80s and 90s. Merchandise and comics kept the brand alive. Fans still argue Johnny Quest was canceled long before it had the chance to grow into the masterpiece it could have been. Number 9. The Marvel Superheroes, 1966. The Marvel Superheroes brought comic book legends to television for the very first time. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and Submariner all appeared in a bold, experimental animated format. It was groundbreaking, it was imperfect, and it ended far too soon. The series lasted only one production cycle before vanishing from syndication schedules. The show used limited animation techniques so limited that many frames came straight from actual comic panels. But for fans, this was exciting. It was the first time iconic heroes moved on a television screen. Each 30-minute episode featured serialized adventures narrated with the energy of pulp storytelling. Critics noticed the ambition. Children loved the action. Yet the format was seen as too stiff by network executives. Behind the scenes, budgets were tight. Rights agreements were messy. Marvel itself was still small and struggling. The show needed more money to evolve. Syndicators declined. No second season was ordered. The aftermath was fascinating. Those 65 episodes helped shape the early identity of Marvel on television. Fans still revisit the series for nostalgia and historical importance. Many believe the show deserved more investment and more time to evolve. Number 8. Fantastic Four, 1967. The Fantastic Four animated series brought Marvel's first family to ABC with high expectations. The brand was popular. The characters were colorful. The adventures were cosmic. Yet the network allowed only one short season before ending the show. It was a victim of shifting priorities rather than a lack of creative potential. The premise followed Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Girl, Human Torch, and The Thing as they battled intergalactic foes like Galactus and Doctor Doom. The writing captured the spirit of the comics. The tone was adventurous. Episodes offered cosmic battles and imaginative visuals that pushed the boundaries of 60s animation. Despite its charm, ABC was uncertain about superhero programming. Parents groups expressed concern about violence in action cartoons. Production costs were rising. Marvel was still navigating television deals and could not fully support expansion. Ratings ratings were moderate but not enough to comfort executives. After 20 episodes, the show was quietly removed, but its legacy lived on. It smoothed the path for later Marvel series throughout the 70s and beyond. Fans still praise the art direction and the earnest attempt to bring comic book storytelling to the screen. Fantastic Four ended too soon, but it left a spark that influenced all the animated superhero shows that followed. Number 7. Space Ghost and Dino Boy, 1966. Space Ghost and Dino Boy formed a unique pairing that fascinated young viewers. On one side, you had a galactic hero patrolling deep space. On the other, a boy surviving in a prehistoric valley. It was a strange combination, yet it worked. The show became a cult favorite, but lasted only a short time before disappearing. Space Ghost featured bold sci-fi adventures. The hero battled villains like Zorak Moltar and Brak. The sleek designs and dramatic tone made it feel larger than life. Dino Boy offered jungle survival stories with a grounded, earthy tone. Together, the split format created a wild, imaginative world. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera was experimenting with stronger action animation, but action required time and money. Networks hesitated. Concerns about violence grew louder. Pressure increased to focus on safer comedic content. As a result, the show produced only a modest number of episodes before ABC restructured its lineup. Yet, Space Ghost refused to die. In later decades, the character returned in parodies, talk shows, and new animated adventures. Dino Boy remained a hidden gem, but still beloved by fans who discovered it through reruns. The early cancellation deprived audiences of what could have become one of the grandest sci-fi universes in classic animation. Number 6. The Herculoids, 1967. The Herculoids delivered primal energy and raw adventure. It was one of the most imaginative Hanna-Barbera creations of the 60s. The show introduced a family and their bizarre creatures defending the planet Amzot from invaders. It was thrilling, wild, and visually stunning. Yet, despite this creativity, it ran for only one main season before being shelved. The core cast included Xandor Tar Adorno and their powerful beast allies like Gloop Gleep, Zok, Igu, and Tundro. Each creature had unique abilities. Each episode played like a pulp, sci-fi comic brought to life. The action was intense. The world building had remarkable depth for its time. Behind the scenes, the production struggled with the same challenges faced by other action shows. Higher animation demands longer schedules and pressure from networks to steer away from too much violence. ABC reconsidered its approach to Saturday morning programming, and the Herculoids became a casualty. After 18 episodes, the series ended. Reruns kept the spark alive. In the late 70s, new episodes were produced, but the original 60s run remained painfully short. Fans still argue the Herculoids was years ahead of its time and deserved a far longer lifespan. Number 5. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, 1967. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio soared onto NBC with the force of pure cosmic energy, yet its life was shockingly brief. The show combined superhero action, sci-fi spectacle, and atmospheric storytelling in a way that audiences had never seen before. Birdman drew power from the sun, while the Galaxy Trio patrolled distant star systems. It was imaginative, bold, and filled with the promise of a larger universe, but the network never allowed it to reach that potential. Each Birdman segment featured intense confrontations with villains like Dr. Millennium and Number 1. The Galaxy Trio brought a different flavor, with Vapor Man, Meteor Man, and Gravity Girl, using their abilities to protect the galaxy. The show balanced two tones in one package and offered something for every young viewer fascinated by science fiction. Behind the scenes, production was expensive, and action-oriented animation was under scrutiny. Concerns grew over whether superhero violence was appropriate for Saturday mornings. NBC wanted lighter, safer programming. The show did not fit that mold. After 20 episodes, executives ended the series before it could expand its mythology. The aftermath was surprising. Birdman returned decades later in reimagined adult comedy, yet fans of the original still celebrate its dramatic roots. The Galaxy Trio remained cult favorites, especially among sci-fi historians. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio ended far too soon, but its legacy never faded. Number 4. Journey to the Center of the Earth, 1967. Journey to the Center of the Earth arrived on ABC with the promise of a sweeping underground odyssey, yet it disappeared long before its imagination ran out. Loosely inspired by Jules Verne's timeless novel, the animated series followed a daring exploration team descending deeper and deeper into a hidden subterranean world. It should have been a flagship adventure for the network. Instead, it was cut short after a single season. The premise revolved around Professor Lindenbrook, his determined niece Cindy, his loyal student Alec, and the brave guide Lars. Their mission to reach Earth's core was shadowed by the villainous Count Saknussem, who hunted them from cavern to cavern. Each episode delivered exotic settings, glowing crystal forests, molten rivers, lost civilizations, and monstrous creatures waiting in the dark. It was atmospheric, dramatic, and visually more ambitious than most animated shows of the decade. Behind the scenes, however, the ambition became a burden. The sweeping fantasy landscapes required more detailed backgrounds, more special effects, and more complex animation than ABC's usual Saturday lineup. Production schedules stretched thin, costs climbed quickly, executives grew nervous as trends shifted toward cheaper superhero and comedy cartoons. cartoons that required far less artistic labor. After just 17 episodes, the network quietly ended the expedition, yet its legacy endured. Fans remembered the eerie lighting, the moody soundtrack, and the sense of danger lurking in every cavern. Journey to the Center of the Earth ended too soon, but its mysterious underground world still fascinates those who rediscover it. Number 3. Super President, 1967. Super President was one of the boldest and most controversial animated shows of the decade. It introduced an American president who gained superhuman abilities and fought threats that endangered national security. It was patriotic pulp storytelling, delivered with straight-faced seriousness. Yet this daring premise created instant controversy. Critics were shocked, networks became nervous. The fallout led to a short life on television. The show followed President James Norcross, who used his abilities to transform into various forms of matter and defend the nation from sinister plots. It was imaginative and wild, yet accused by critics of turning the office of the presidency into superhero fantasy. Some believed it was disrespectful. Others found it thrilling. Parents' groups raised concerns about mixing politics with violence. NBC felt the pressure. Behind the scenes, the series faced more issues. The animation required effects beyond the usual Saturday morning style. Costs increased. Executives worried the show was too polarizing for its time. After 30 episodes, NBC ended the series abruptly, but the fascination continued. Over the years, Super President became a strange cult relic, remembered for the boldness of its concept. Scholars still analyze its political implications. Fans appreciate its pulp sincerity. It ended far too soon because television was not ready for such a risky idea. Number 2. The Mighty Heroes, 1966. The Mighty Heroes arrived with humor, heart, and a colorful burst of superhero parody. The show featured a team of oddball heroes: Diaper Man, Strong Man, Tornado Man, Cuckoo Man, and Rope Man. Each episode blended slapstick action with affectionate superhero satire. It was cheerful, imaginative, and filled with potential. Yet, it lasted only a single season before fading from the airwaves. The humor came from the unpredictability of the heroes, whose powers often caused as much trouble as they solved. The storytelling felt like a mixture of Golden Age comics and physical comedy. Children adored the characters. Animators loved the playful energy. But the show faced challenges in a competitive lineup crowded with new superhero cartoons. Behind the scenes, the series struggled with budget constraints and a limited production schedule. CBS wanted faster and cheaper animation. The Mighty Heroes required more expressive movement and visual gags, which slowed production. When CBS reshaped its Saturday programming, the show was quietly removed. Still, its legacy grew. Fans remembered its charm. Comic artists cited it as an influence. Episodes became collector treasures. The Mighty Heroes ended far too soon, not because it failed, but because networks lacked patience for quirky creativity. Number 1. Milton the Monster, 1965. Milton the Monster stood out as one of the most delightfully strange animated programs of the 60s. It blended horror parody, slapstick comedy, and monster-themed storytelling with a charm that captivated young viewers. The design of Milton, with his stitched body-friendly grin and bubbling laugh, made him instantly iconic. Yet, despite this popularity, the show produced only a single main season before ending far too quickly. Each episode delivered short comedic segments, featuring Milton and other spooky characters like Fearless Fly, Penny Penguin, and Fluky Luke. The humor was warm, the pacing was lively. The art had a distinct style that separated it from typical Saturday morning fare. Children loved the spooky fun without actual terror. Parents approved of its gentle tone. However, behind the scenes, the studio faced mounting production costs. Limited animation could not fully support the many segment formats. ABC restructured its lineup and favored simpler, cheaper cartoons. Although Milton had a loyal audience, the network decided not to renew. After 26 episodes, the show vanished except for reruns. Yet it maintained a devoted fan following, and historians often praise its creativity. Milton the Monster ended far too soon, but it remains one of the most charming monster-themed cartoons of its time. These 15 shows burned bright, then vanished, leaving behind echoes of unrealized potential. They shaped young imaginations, inspired future artists, and became legends through reruns and memory. Their time was brief, yet their impact was deep. Celebrate them, remember them, and keep their forgotten brilliance alive for the next generation.